Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, What's Coming in Sencha Ext JS 7.7, hosted by Sencha. My name is Raj Huyuru. I'm a marketing manager at Sencha. Will be moderating today's webinar. I'm pleased to introduce today's presenter, Marc Gusmano, Senior Sales Engineer. Before I pass the mic to Marc to start the webinar, please note that it is being recorded and will be available on demand on YouTube. Additionally, we'll be hosting a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If at any time during the webinar you have a question, please submit it via question panel. Marc, you now have the floor.
Thank you very much and welcome everyone. In this webinar, as we said, we're going to be talking about what's coming in our latest version of EXTJS, version 7.7. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. So the 7.7 version is what we term primarily a quality release. So that is defined as many support fixes and issues that we may have found with customers that submitted support tickets that we brought into the engineering process. We'll talk about several categories of those things in this call. There are also enhancements to the tools, and where appropriate, I will show you those things. And as you can see, we've got several main categories of highlights of what's in 7.7. The first one being the Apple new Silicon M1 chip support. Across the board now, all of our tooling supports the release of the Apple M1 and M2 chips that are available. We also have upgraded all of the IDE plugins, all of the editor plugins to the latest versions of their respective products. And we'll take a look at those. In particular, we'll look at the Visual Code plugin just to give you an example of its usefulness. We now support and have documented a local install process if you are using the Sencha NPM packages. A lot of people want to use these packages in an unattended continuous integration environment, so the need to bring those into a local install becomes critical, and we now have the ability to do that, and we'll go through more details on that. There have been several warnings and vulnerabilities that have been sticky situations with Sencha Command and XGen. We went through and fixed those and now have a clean build process for Sencha Command and the Open Tooling XGen product. We'll take a look at that when we get there. And then with this release, the tools are all upgraded to support the new 7.7 functionality. So the first is the ability to now build, run Sencha Command and Sencha App Watch, all the varying permutations of Sencha Command on an Apple M1 chip. There were some internal considerations that we had to address, but now all the products, Sencha Command, Sencha Themer, Sencha Architect, and the miscellaneous errors that were occurring with the M1 chip have been resolved. So anyone using a newer M1 Mac or MacBook would now be able to fully implement an EXTJS application. The bullets on here, by the way, are ticket numbers. So we keep track of every issue that comes across in the support portal, have categorized tickets. You may have seen these if you use the support portal. In the lower right-hand corner of a ticket, if a ticket's been assigned, this number will show up. So that's what those items refer to. Another very good improvement in 7.7 is that the IDE plugins have been upgraded to the latest versions. So we have several IDE or editor plugins. We have one for Visual Studio Code, we have an IntelliJ plugin, and we have an Eclipse plugin. Those environments change very rapidly. You get new versions. I use VS Code a lot, and I know monthly new versions are available. And sometimes those versions break the plugins. And in this release, in 7.7, we have addressed and brought to the latest version each of the plugins. So work has been done on Visual Studio Code, work on IntelliJ IDEA, and also the Eclipse plugin itself. The documentation for all of this is available in our documentation site. And if you are interested in looking at how you use the plugins, I would suggest going to this site here. And let me just give you an idea of that site. So if I come over here and take a look, you can see here that the various plugins are defined: Eclipse, the JetBrains, Visual Studio Code, and in particular, Visual Studio Code, which is what I want to demonstrate, has instructions on how to install the extension into the Visual Studio Code environment, what the prerequisites are, and ultimately some of the use cases for the tool. So what I'd like to do is take a look at the Visual Studio Code extension, just to give you a feel, if you haven't used these plugins before, what capabilities exist in the plugins, how you utilize them, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and install the, excuse me one second here. I'm going to go ahead and bring up Visual Studio Code. And I happen to be running this in a Windows environment. So this is Visual Studio Code, the editor. I have it in dark mode. And if I click over here to the Extensions tab, you'll notice that one of the installed extensions is Sencha Ext JS, and this newest version, which supports the 7.7 environment. I also have an application that I built. I just called it Classic App 7.7, and the typical structure of the application exists in the Explorer. So let me give you a little bit of an idea of the kind of things you can do with the product. I'm going to start out by going to a view. So this is just one of the views that is in the application. If I scroll down here to the area where I can put in new items, which is right here, I'm going to go ahead and add an object in preparation for adding a new item. So one of the things you're able to do with the Visual Studio Code plugin, with any of the plugins, is get a level of IntelliSense. So for example, if in the Windows environment I hit Control Space, you'll notice that I get a list of objects or configs that I can use inside this config in Ext.js. And because I have the plugin installed, it knows that one of the configs I can use is Xtype. So that shows up. I could maybe create a panel. And moving forward, the IntelliSense is contextual. So now it knows I'm using a panel. If I again hit Control Space and let's say type a T, panel will allow me to use a title config. So that's using IntelliSense within the Visual Studio environment. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Another thing you can do is navigate through code with the plugins. So again, I'll bring up the main panel, and you'll notice that the main panel extends an EXT component, EXT tab panel. Well, if I hover my mouse here and hit F12, you'll notice that I am brought to the SDK source for the EXT tab panel. So if I want to peruse the source to understand what it's doing, how it works, a simple F12 will get me to that point. The other thing I'm able to do at this level is peek at the code that's in the SDK. So if I hit an Alt and F12 in Windows, you'll notice that I get that same panel, but it's in a peek window. So I get that capability right within the environment. And then F1 will bring me to the documentation for the panel itself. And we don't have the 7.7 documentation released yet, but here's the 7.6 version of panel. And you'll notice it brings you right to the right context, right to the tab panel, where I can look at the documentation for configs, methods, events, look at whatever examples might be there. So very nice to be able to do that contextual connection with documentation and the source code right within the Visual Studio Code environment. I also have the ability to create snippets. So let's say here I created a new panel. So I'll call it panel.js. And I already have a panel.js, so I'll use that one. The snippet functionality is accessible by typing Ext JS, and you'll notice that the contextual Ext JS objects exist. For example, if I want to create this as a view, I can just pick the view, and I will get a template of that view itself. I can edit these snippets. So let's just say I have some further information that I want every developer to be able to bring in when I bring this template in. If I go up to the command palette and I click on the Edit EXTJS Snippets menu item, you'll notice that I'm here and I am able to create or add whatever I might want to the snippet, including some replaceable variables like class name. There may be a few other things I might want to do. But that gives me the ability to customize exactly what I might want. So that gives you a little bit of a feel of how you work with a plugin within the developer mode. I also, if I right click, have the ability to create new EXTJS applications, new packages, new workspaces, all within the environment, and it will step me through what I need. And then finally, if I'm ready to do some testing, I can run Sencha App Watch or Sencha App Watch with Fashion right from within the IDE. So a very nice set of tools that enhance the productivity while I'm in these particular IDEs. All right. Moving forward, a couple of versions back, we introduced the ability to use NPM packages for your Sencha Ext JS development. NPM has become a very popular public and private packaging environment. There are a lot of tools and an ecosystem around building applications that support NPM. We introduced a tool called Open Tooling through the XGen product that allows you to create a node NPM package project, and that NPM package project will utilize packages in an NPM repository, specifically in a private Sencha NPM repository that as a customer you will have credentials to, IDs and passwords. So the ability to get at that repository is simply to log in to the repository, and we built an organization, an @Sencha organization. So anytime you look for a particular NPM package that begins with @Sencha, it will go to that private NPM repository. Taking that further, a lot of customers have wanted to build continuous integration environments with the ability to get at these packages from within their continuous integration running environments. Those environments tend to be server-based and a lot of times do not have the ability or are not allowed to log into external environments. So to be able to retrieve the Sencha packages necessary in a continuous integration environment sometimes becomes problematic if I have to log into the private NPM server. What we've done to facilitate the use of these packages within a continuous integration environment is to support local installation of Sencha NPM packages. So we provided a set of instructions to show you how to retrieve the NPM packages from the private NPM repository, install those packages locally within your environment, which will then not require authentication or login, and then be able to build a continuous integration flow without worrying about authenticating to the Sencha environment. So in the new documentation that will show up, we will have a new guide which will outline the set of steps to allow you to create your own copy, your local copy without authentication needs of the Sencha repository. And I've taken a screenshot of the documentation that will be coming out. You can see here there's a simple set of steps. You go retrieve the packages, how you bring them locally, how you refer to those packages within your package.json file. All of that is going to be defined and documented. And this will become a very nice addition to the ability of automatic continuous integration with Sencha applications. There were a set of warnings and vulnerabilities that became apparent within Sencha Command and the Open Tooling XGen tool. As product versions evolved, certain capabilities became available and certain vulnerabilities or warnings were showing up. And I want to just give you an idea of a couple of those. We've really gone through and figured out where we can clean those up, make sure that we are using the latest version of whatever packages we need to use within the product, both within Sencha Command and within the Open Tooling environment. And one in particular that a lot of people have seen that tended to bring up a little bit of concern was warnings that were happening for Sencha app build. So I want to give you a little bit of idea of what I mean by that. So this screen right here is a terminal window. And as you can see, I'm running Sencha app build within this folder, classic app 7.6. So what I did is I created, using Sencha Command 7.6, a classic application, Sencha app generate, and then I simply did a Sencha app build, which by default will build a production version of your application. And you can see that here. And one of the things that, as I said, was just concerning was these closure compiler warnings. And there are a lot of them. So, why do they exist? Are they something I need to be concerned about? I can't tell you how many customers I've talked about, I talked to that had that same question. So we needed to clean that up, fix it, address the issue. And you'll know that now I go to my Windows environment and I'm in my classic app 7.7. So this Visual Studio project, I did the same thing. I did a generate app, but I used the new 7.7 version of Sencha Command. And then using the integrated terminal capabilities of Visual Studio, I did that same Visual Studio Code, I should say. I did that same Sencha app build. So you can see here now I'm using version 7.7. And unlike the 7.6 version with all those warnings, you can see here that now we have a nice clean build without anything to be really addressed from a warnings point of view. So things like that from a quality point of view have been addressed in version 7.7 of EXT.js. Just kind of for completeness, if you happen to get a copy of the slides, here is the 7.6 warnings from the closure compiler. And then here's that same version running in 7.7 that now eliminates those warnings. Another big area that 7.7 addresses is tooling support. So all of these new capabilities, the ability to use the latest version of Sencha Command within Sencha Themer, or to use the latest version of Sencha Command within Sencha Architect. Sencha Command is a big part of these underlying tools, and we've gone through and we've upgraded all of the tools to be able to use not only the latest version of Sencha Command, but all the latest versions of the SDK itself. So Sencha Command has been upgraded. The Upgrade Advisor and the ESLint plugin have been upgraded. The Upgrade Advisor, if you've never used it or heard about it, is a tool, a free tool that we provide to allow you to point to your existing application. Let's say it's built in version 6.7, and ask the Upgrade Advisor, what warnings or what things do I need to take care of in my application if I upgrade, in this particular case, to version 7.7. It will run an ESLint environment with custom plugins that we've written and now have upgraded for 7.7. It will give you a report of all the things that maybe have been deprecated or changed or overrides that you've created. And in a lot of cases, it will allow you to click a button and fix anything that it knows it can fix, like maybe proper props or configs that have changed, or deprecated methods, etc. So the Upgrade Advisor and the ESLint plugin is being updated. Sencha Themer, which is our theming tool, has been upgraded to support the 7.7 environment. Open Tooling, or the XGen tool that takes advantage of NPM, now under the covers uses Sencha Command 7.7. And then Sencha Architect, our visual drag and drop tool, will now support the EXT 7.7 environment. So across the board, we have built and enhanced our tooling to support the Ext JS 7.7 environment. As far as availability of the product, we are in literally the final lap of development. What I'm hearing from our engineering team is that potentially next week or within a few short weeks, we should have a general availability version of Ext JS 7.7. Before that actually happens, and during the course of the 7.7 development, we have been building nightlies. So if you are a customer and have access to the support portal, support.sencha.com, you have been and are able to get the latest version of the SDK, the Sencha Command environment, and any of the other tools. But very, very soon, those will be graduated to production ready, general availability, and 7.7 will be available. So we will make an announcement on our website, but look for that in very, very short order. Looking forward to that. Maybe you're not a customer quite yet, and you want to try Ext JS, you want to try version 7.7. The 30-day free trial that we provide on Sencha.com currently is available for version 7.6. It includes all of the tools that are available that I've talked about: Themer, Architect, XGen, everything's available. As soon as 7.7 is released and generally available, the 30-day free trial will be available for 7.7. It's pretty simple to acquire the trial if you haven't done that yet. Simply go over to Sencha.com. There's a big green button here for downloading Ext JS, and you fill out a few simple things, click download now, and then your product will be delivered to you and you'd be able to download it. As soon as you download the product, we have an Ext JS Quick Start, and the Quick Start has both an NPM version or the Open Tools XGen environment, if you choose to go that way, or it has a zip version. So if you want to just use the traditional Sencha Command install, that's available as well. So as I said, as soon as 7.7 is released, The Getting Started Guide will reflect 7.7, and you'll be able to download the 7.7 environment. If you would rather get a quick head start, that is available to you. I would simply go over to the support portal, support.sencha.com, and you'd be able to download that. We have a lot of links to learn the product, understand it. With every version that comes out of Ext JS, so if I go over to docs, with every version that comes out, we give a comprehensive list of what's new and what's different. So currently, the documentation points to version 7.6, but every version, as I said, has a what's new section. So what was new in 7.6 is documented here. When 7.7 comes out, we're going to get what's new in 7.7. We always provide a set of release notes. We always provide which tickets we've addressed and in which category. So in this particular case, in 7.6, we had fixes to core, modern, and classic toolkits. We'll have those same things for 7.7. And then the upgrade guide is really what the upgrade advisor uses to know what things have changed in a granular level to be able to tell you when you're moving from an old version to 7.7, what is it that you need to address in your application. So all of that is there. It's very comprehensive. We do have Twitter and YouTube channels. We also have a pretty robust blog environment. Highly likely that as we release 7.7, we'll do a quick blog just to make sure everybody's aware that the 7.7 product has been released. It will give you links, how to acquire it. It will review at a high level the things I'm talking about right now. Certainly you're able to get a video recording of this if you want to share this with colleagues or if you want to get an update on what I mentioned. And as always, if there's some specific question you have, please feel free to send me an email and I'd be happy to respond. Another good way to get updates and collaborate with other customers, to collaborate with our MVP community, is to join our Sencha Discord server. So the Discord server is an area where you can ask a question. There are categories to the Discord server. You can ask a Sencha command question. You can ask a 7.7 question. All sorts of things are out there. A lot of visibility by the MVP community, as I said. If you have never gotten an ID to this, my best advice to you is to contact your sales rep, and we can get you a customized Discord server ID and a link to where you can get access to the Discord server environment. I think Discord also has an app that you can install. So that's a big thing to get attached to the community. All right, so that gives you some of the highlights of what's new with the 7.7 community. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Again, if you do have questions, feel free to type them in and we can address them as we have time here at the end of the webinar. If you do have specific questions that you want to contact me, again, I'll put my email address up on the screen, Marc Gusmano. I'd be happy to answer those, but at this moment, I will turn it back to our hosts to see if we have any particular questions that we can discuss.
Thank you for the presentation, Marc. It looks like we have a few questions that have been submitted.
Great,
so
great.
Yeah, the very first question we have here, would Sencha plugins support latest version of IDEs?
Yes, yeah. So in each case, in the Visual Studio Code or Eclipse or IntelliJ case, we made sure that, at the time of us doing the upgrades, that we did support the latest and greatest versions of each of the IDEs. As I said, though, those IDE environments do get enhanced very often. So we're going to keep our eye on those upgrades. So there may be interim upgrades that we might need to do just to address things. But yes, we are going to address every single one of those. And those will be available at the time of general release. those IDE plugins and upgrades are available in early form on the support portal, just as the SDK and Sencha command is. So if you want to get a quick look at what I showed you for your particular IDE, feel free to go download it now. We're very close, so that it's highly likely it's the production version, but in hopefully a week or so, we will officially have those 7.7 versions. So yeah, thank you.
Sounds good, Marc. Thank you.
Sure.
There are a couple of questions with regards to Sencha CMD. When can we expect Sencha CMD to work with ES6 or TypeScript? That's the first question.
Okay, so again, to work with ES6, was that the?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I do believe we upgraded the closure compiler. We used the closure compiler to do some of that work to make sure we're supporting the latest features. I do believe it was upgraded, and it may have been upgraded again in this version. I am not sure exactly what version of the JavaScript environment it currently supports, but I can get back to whoever asked that question with the specifics. But we indeed did upgrade the environment to be able to support the latest ES JavaScript new capabilities.
Thank you, Marc. We have a similar question with regards to Sencha CMD toolset to support Java 17. Java 11 hits end of life in September.
Right. I'm not positive what particular version we may have upgraded to for Sencha command. I can get back to you on that. We are very well aware that the Java environment has some deprecated versions, and I believe we have addressed that in this version, but I don't want to speak without complete facts. So I'm going to have to find out what version that is. I will make sure that the team, as we do announce the product, addresses that. For example, in the blog, we can put in a little point to say what version of Java Sencha command now supports. So that's a good point. We'll make sure we do that.
That's great. We have a question with regards to nightly build. Is there only one nightly build for 7.7?
Yeah, I don't think we were putting out. I mean, nightlies implies every night, but there is a latest version of the product that it's out there. I don't know that it is like yesterday's version, but it is a very stable version. I've been using it for a while, so I would rely on the fact that very, very soon we're going to have the general availability version. So go ahead and use whatever the latest version is out there. It's functional and it's feature complete, and we will announce very shortly the general release of the product.
Thank you, Marc. The next question we have here, is it VS Code plugin going to work with Linux?
Yes, it is. That is a supported platform that we are targeting for the VS Code plugin. So yes, it will support the Linux or Ubuntu environment.
Thank you, Marc. Is it possible to get nightlies built using open tooling?
Okay, so the question is about using open tooling. As I mentioned, open tooling uses the NPM repository version of Ext JS. So the nightlies that we produce, or whatever we produce and put on the support portal, is intended for consumption specifically by Sencha command. The open tooling environment takes advantage of the NPM repository that we have, the private NPM repository, and that isn't necessarily at the same cadence. I'm comfortable though that we're so close to general availability. The moment general availability happens, the XGen environment, which pulls from the NPM repo, will be pulling the GA version. So I'm not sure if we have well, we will have the GA version there once it's released. So that's Yeah, the latest version in the support portal isn't necessarily the latest version that's in the NPM repo, but again, we're so close to release that it will be soon.
Thank you, Mark. The next question we have here, are there any new or updated components in version 7.7 of ExtJS?
Yeah, this version, with primarily being a quality release, did not address any new functionality from a component point of view. What we've been doing as a cadence is we've been trying to be very consistent in terms of getting out releases more or less on a quarterly basis, and those releases have been a quality release followed by a functionality release followed by a quality release. So this was primarily a quality release, so no new components. 7.8, which we are currently working on the specs for, would have some of those capabilities. We are very open to understanding what new components people are interested in that we may need, that others may be interested in. So if you have whoever asked the question, or in general, if you have some ideas of components that we should be looking at adding, thinking about building, send us that information. If you're a support portal customer, put it in the support portal. You can put a ticket in and give us that information. At least we'll give it trackability. Or send me an email, or send your sales rep an email. We're very open to that, and if it makes sense, we'll include that in an upcoming release.
Thank you, Mark. The next question we have here, are there any upgrades to Sencha Test? Would it be possible to run Sencha Test CLI in CI/CD pipelines with embedded browsers?
Yeah, Sencha Test is not included in this upcoming 7.7 release, or at least updates to Sencha Test are not included. We need to, I think we probably need to communicate what and when Sencha Test will be upgraded and when that release might be. If there's a specific question or some issue in running in a CI/CD environment, let me know or let us know. The Sencha Test was designed, it has a command line interface specifically to allow it to be run in that environment. I don't know if the question was that or having to do with embedded devices, but if there's some functionality that you're suggesting we need, this is a good time to let us know so we can take a look at it.
Thank you, Mark. We have a question with regards to Sencha tools.
Yep.
Are we actively testing Sencha tools with Sonoma Mac OS already with release beta, or will we start testing when release? Right. So I think there are some issues with regards to Mac OS releases. Sencha tools.
Well, we are testing the tools for the supported platforms, obviously Windows, Mac, Linux. As I mentioned, we have done a lot of work with the tooling to make sure the new Mac Silicon, the M1 and M2 chip, are supported. And we will continue as we move forward to make sure that that silicon is absolutely supported. I know there was a new announcement just recently by Apple of M2, and M3 is very close. So as those new chips do appear, we are dedicated to supporting those. So I think the short answer is yes, we do, and we are going to support the Apple environment, both Intel and M1 or MX.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. The next question we have here, where I can find the release notes for 7.7, or like what's coming in, everything, including the bug fixes.
Yeah, the release notes, you wouldn't find them yet for 7.7. As soon as things are generally released, this URL with a 7.7 in it will get you to the release notes, will get you to the what's new. So we'll have these same 3 menus items available in 7.7, and obviously those will reflect the things I talked about today, and the upgrade guide will reflect things to allow the upgrade advisor to be able to upgrade you to 7.7. So expect those immediately as the release is announced.
Thank you. The next question we have, Sencha architects support older version of Ext JS like 7.6?
Is the question, does Sencha Command support 7.6, or what was the specific part of that question?
The question is, does Sencha Architect support older version of EXTJS?
Oh, Sencha Architect. Yes, Sencha Architect does support older versions. We put a version of Sencha Architect out the previous release that specifically addressed some rework we were doing with Sencha Architect, and it only supported one version, 7.7, but this next version of Sencha Architect is going to go back to what probably people who have used Sencha Architect are used to, which is the support for any supported version, and any 7X version is a supported version and will continue to be until, for the foreseeable future. So yes, I would expect that to be available. Although with this being a quality release, it might be a good time to consider doing an upgrade to 7.7, but rest assured the other previous 7X versions are supported.
Thank you, Mark. This is more, this question regards to EXTJS Community Edition.
Okay.
Is there any latest version that is available for EXTJS Community Edition?
I don't know if that's a great question. I don't know if we're bundling 7.7 Community Edition. I honestly will have to get back to whoever asked that question. Please send me an email and I can do some follow-up on that.
Sounds good. Right. Okay. Cool. Just a few more questions to go here.
Sure.
Is there any updates for Rapid EXTJS?
Finally a Rapid EXTJS question. First off, what is Rapid EXTJS? You may not have heard that term before, but that's something that is pretty new and is in the mix here. You'll notice on the Sencha.com homepage that there's a Rapid Ext JS beta link. And if you click on it, you can learn a little bit more. So let me back up and just give you an idea of what this is. I've talked about the plugins that we have available and we've upgraded, and the platforms that the plugin supports, IntelliJ, Eclipse, and Visual Studio Code. Each of those plugins has things like IntelliSense and the ability to create new views, etc., but it does not have a visual design or a visual editor environment. Our only production tool that has that at the moment is Sencha Architect. So with Sencha Architect, you can drag and drop components onto a palette and visually design your interface and then write code right within the Architect environment. The key, though, is that you have to be in the Architect environment and you have to stay in the Architect environment. If you go out of the Architect environment and edit with any one of these other editors, you now have to stay in that other editor, because Architect supports its processes by keeping track of what you've done with metadata. So getting out of the environment and making edits causes problems. We've looked at that and we've said, well, we'd like to change that. We'd like to fix that. And what is the right answer? How should we deliver a visual design environment, a new visual design environment, given where things are currently? And we looked at the environments that were out there. We've seen that Visual Studio Code is very, very popular for JavaScript editing. And we've decided to build a visual editing environment within Visual Studio Code itself. And we've called that Rapid Ext JS. So Rapid Ext JS is currently in beta. It is going to be a product that gives you visual drag and drop. You are able to still acquire the beta. We're working towards a general release, and it will manifest itself as an additional EXTJS plugin. I'm sorry, as an additional Visual Studio Code plugin, just like the plugin that I was showing you. So for example, if I go back over to my Visual Studio Code environment and come over here to extensions, you may notice that I have an Sencha Ext JS, which is the plugin that I showed you. And I also happen to have the Rapid Ext JS beta. So this product is a little bit different. It augments and enhances what the Ext JS plugin does. You can actually have both of them running The biggest enhancement with Rapid Ext JS is going to be a visual editing environment. So the ability to drag and drop onto a palette, the ability to create applications with a visual UI that I'm bringing up right now, just to give you an idea. So bottom line is Rapid Ext JS started a beta at the beginning of this year. We've gathered a lot of good feedback. We will still take in feedback. We are currently working towards a general release. I do not think we have an announced timeline for that, but that's really the world of Rapid Ext JS coming, and really taking more and more of that functionality that we've built into Sencha Architect and bringing it to the Visual Studio Code environment as a plugin or as an extension.
Thank you, Marc.
Yep.
We have one more question here. Where's the best place to find the documentation for Sencha Ext JS 7.7?
The best documentation point? Well, if you're using the plugin, as I showed you, the best way to get at the documentation is simply to select something and hit F1. That will bring you to the documentation, which, as I mentioned earlier, is not available yet for 7.6 or 7.7, but this is the docs.sencha.com site. Here, everything for a particular component is documented. So the best place to start is docs.sencha.com, either getting to it with the plugin and an F1 key, or if, let's just say, you want to get specifically to a particular component, let's say our regular panel, you can use the search bar. That's probably the most efficient way, what I usually do. And all of the properties, methods, and events are available, along with anything for Sencha themer variables, themer mixins. So that combination gives you a good way to get to the documentation. On a related note, I will say, if you're looking for more tutorial or training-based material, the best place to go is the Sencha.com homepage, and this resources link is really where we've gathered everything to do with each of the products that we offer. And so if I click on EXTJS, I can see any or all self-study or tutorial videos. I can see white papers. I can see webinars, previous webinars. This particular webinar, as it's recorded, will be added to the list here. It'll point you to examples, any sort of data sheets, case studies, anything blog related, and also our official training. So all of that is available to you. Another area where I kind of put it in the category of documentation that I use a lot is examples.sencha.com. And those examples, in particular, the EXTJS kitchen sink is a very good source of information. So this is a developer-oriented site that lets you pick a particular category of components, see them on a page, and allows you to reuse the code and bring it into your application. So if you're interested in, let's say, let me close this off. If you're interested in doing something with forms, and this, let's say, tag field is something that you're interested in, simply come to that example, grab the code, and you're on your way. And you'll also notice that with all the examples, we've tried to use best practices and standards for EXTJS, the ability to create a view, a store as an isolated component, models, view controllers, all of that's going to be available in these examples. So that's probably the three places I would go: the documentation, the resources page, and examples.sencha.com, specifically the kitchen sink.
Thank you very much. I think we have one more question for the day. Just a follow-up to Rapid Ext JS. What is there any availability date for Rapid Ext JS?
No, I don't think we have an available date. I would look for some announcement as we get closer to when we might deliver it, but I don't have anything specific in terms of delivery. As I said, the beta and the beta component is available along with instructions on how to acquire the product. And I do believe there is even a documentation site. I think the best way to get to it is, let me just go back to sencha.com. I believe there's a link here. Here we go. There's a Rapid Ext JS link here. So this link can get you started. Basically, you can download the beta. It'll give you some documentation. We have a video, give you some understanding, and it will also bring you to the documentation for the product itself. So if you're interested, certainly go download it today, get it installed, give us some feedback, and as soon as we have information on when the product will be available in a first release, we will let the community know. One other thing, I guess, related to this, there's a pretty good Discord server section on Rapid Ext JS. So if you have a question or if you want to get some insight from MVPs and others, please join that Discord server that I mentioned.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yep.
There is a last question for the day. Is there Frola, I think the specific editor, now integrated also in Classic Toolkit?
Can you please repeat that one again? I'm sorry.
I think there is a tool called Frola. I think we somewhere we mentioned over. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it now?
Yeah. I think the question has to do with one of our sister companies. So Sencha is in the developer tools division of IDERA, and there are a few other tools that are available. One of which is Frola, which is an editor, an HTML editor. So if you went over to examples, let me just do this again. Examples.sencha.com. Then I went over again to that kitchen sink I was just at and went to the classic toolkit. I believe, well, let me go to the modern toolkit. I believe I don't know if it was the question, finish the question up. Was it whether it's available in both toolkits, or what was the question itself?
Is there Frola is integrated with Classic Toolkit or not?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't know that it is. We go to the modern toolkit, which is the other toolkit that we have. The Frola editor, which is this thing right here, is available. So we've done the specific supported integration to allow the Frola editor to be embedded within a modern toolkit application. The Frola editor totally can be used in the classic toolkit, but I don't know that we have a specific implementation for that, and that is not something that's been implemented here. I will bring that to the engineering team to see if we can't get that included or where that is in the process. So it looks like still today the Frola editor is modern toolkit integrated officially, but the Frola editor is totally usable within the classic toolkit. One other tool that people are interested in that is also a sister company is Fusion Charts. So if you happen to use Fusion Charts, they can be integrated, although the Ext JS environment has a complete charting environment. So you have some choice there as well. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marc. We have some feedback and some great ideas that shared in this questions panel. Definitely that details will be passed with our product and engineering team.
Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
So we have some great feedback that came from attendees, some ideas, from feedback. So the thought is here, maybe, we can forward these.
Fantastic.
These
please, if you want to type some things in here, or like I said, if you want to specifically send something to me or our engineering team, we are always looking and are open to feedback, whether that be for new components or things that you think we should be addressing. I mean, a lot of the feedback in what people wanted for tooling is what went into the evolution of what now is called Rapid Ext JS. So we want to hear the things that are important to you guys, and Rapid Ext JS is a great example of that. That's why we're moving forward with that product.
Thank you very much. I think we are just about out of time for today's webinar. I would like to remind everyone today's webinar was recorded and you will receive a follow-up email with the link recording shortly. Once again, thank you for attending today's webinar. We look forward to you joining us next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.